Welcome to the last session of CommOCEAN 2020. We've got two speakers in this final session. We've got Kira Coley, who's the editor of Eco magazine, and Larissa Milo-Dale from the WWF European Policy Office. Our presentations will last around 15 minutes each, with an opportunity for questions after each presentation. Please do use the Q&A in the chat if you want to pose any questions, and at the end of each presentation I'll moderate and fire questions from the chat at you too. Following the presentations, we'll close the conference with the announcement of the most popular example from our online exhibition, and we'll share with you a link to provide us with some feedback about the conference. Obviously very different format this time, but quite similar in its content, so we'd really welcome your opinions on how it's been. I'd like to also take this opportunity to say that all of the sessions over the last 2 days have been recorded and will be made available along with the conference proceedings in the new year. So that means that if you were not able to attend all of the sessions because they were running in parallel, you will have the option in the new year to watch everything over again. So hopefully that will be something to look forward to. So I won't say anything more, and I will pass to our first speaker, who is Kira.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kira Coley and I am the senior editor of Eco magazine. And I want to thank the organisers of CommOCEAN for inviting me to talk today at what I consider to be one of the most important conferences in ocean science. Oh, let me see, there we go. So I actually want to start my talk with the last slide. Just because I feel like this is a really important message that shouldn't really be left to the end. If we want to ensure a healthy future for the ocean, then we need to effectively communicate our science. How do we do that? By telling stories at every opportunity and by working together to create a compelling and impactful narrative for global audiences of all ages. So you have heard a lot of fantastic advice from experts over the last 2 days. I really want to take this moment to encourage you all to increase your ocean storytelling in 2021 by using all the available tools, around that we've heard about over the last 2 days, tools such as Eco magazine. Okay, so I am going to split my talk into 3 different parts. The first part is just to introduce you guys to Eco magazine for anyone who hasn't heard of us so far. The next is how to work with us and how to work with the media generally. And then most importantly, opportunities for next year for you guys to, work with us and to share your activities with a global audience via our network. One of the things that we'll be going into more detail about as well is a special edition on the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, which was announced yesterday at the opening address, which will be produced in partnership with IOC UNESCO and distributed at decade-related conferences next year, including the second UN Ocean Conference. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and I pretty much expect almost everyone here to be able to contribute in some way. So I will go into more detail about that shortly. Okay. So Eco magazine is a world-leading international trade publication reporting from the front lines of ocean science, innovation and exploration. Launched in 2015, Eco's mission is essentially to provide a free, reputable platform for scientists and professionals to share engaging stories about the ocean, coast, deep sea, polar, and everything in between. Anything wet and salty or frozen in case of polar, then we do cover. So essentially, again, there is pretty much an opportunity for everyone today. The aim of the magazine is to inform the international ocean science community about what everyone is up to and the activities taking place, to promote collaboration, both globally and cross-sector, but also to increase awareness about important topics and to celebrate progress. Yes, we have a long way to go. There is much that still needs to be done, but I think it's also important to acknowledge and to recognise the great work that is underway today. So that does underpin a lot of the core messaging that we do. So I joined Eco magazine in 2018. In 2019, we underwent a major rebrand and restructured the magazine to better serve the ocean community. So in the last 2 years, we have covered all sorts of topics, but including blue economy, fisheries and aquaculture, polar, coastal and estuaries, deep sea marine ecosystems and ocean exploration. And we have shared, I actually counted some of these stories and lost count, but we have shared over 180 stories in the last 2 years within the magazine. So that doesn't include the website, and well over 200 scientists and ocean professionals have contributed. Hopefully that number will increase next year. And 15,000 people receive the print publication online around the world. It is also available online as well. Now, as well as the in print, we have recently introduced a digital series. Now, these digital magazines work a little bit differently to our print editions. Our print editions are normally around 68 pages. When these are they're kind of beasts of magazines, they're normally 150 pages. It takes a lot of time and energy to produce them, but my gosh, it's rewarding. We have recently just published the deep sea issue, which is just full of some really engaging and fantastic articles, so please do check that out. These editions as well, what we find is that they are, the reach that we have of these publications are so much greater than you can get with print in many respects. Just because it is digital, it is online, you can have a really fantastic multimedia experience by embedding videos, podcasts, etc. within the magazine, so people can absorb complex information in different ways beyond what the normal written word would allow. And obviously we partner with some fantastic organizations which also help to encourage people like yourselves to contribute to the magazine and help spread the word and about what it is that everyone is up to. We also have media partners. So our media partners, they have a dedicated section within the magazine and they provide exclusive updates about what it is that they've been up to. So for example, Frontiers in Marine Science, they have a section that kind of updates people on the latest published scientific papers in connection to the editorial focus. IOC UNESCO, they have their own section to provide updates on the decade. And the American Academy of Underwater Sciences, they have a section which kind of provides interesting articles about scientific diving. And of course, we have our website and newsletter. So if you can't, for some reason, get a story within our magazines, either digital or print, then we have opportunities to publish feature stories on the website, which also gets a lot of traffic. We also have news departments, which we've recently introduced, which includes ocean policy, ocean community news, industry, deep sea, polar, etc., job opportunities as well. So please do take a look, but there is lots of opportunities available. Okay, so that's a very brief summary about Eco Magazine and what we're all about. So just going to talk to you quickly about working with the media. One of the first things I think we should cover is press releases. So we are very fortunate in the fact that we have lots of talented communicators in the ocean sciences. So the quality of the press releases are very good. But there's just a few things that I think would certainly improve my day and make my life easier, and the same for the rest of the media and journalists around the world, just to help improve the reach of your press releases and makes it easier to republish. So the first point really is to please be proactive and share externally. And this may be obvious to a lot of you, but don't just publish it on your website. Please publish it on lots of different media outlets, such as Eureka Alert, Science Daily, send a tweet, post it on Facebook, Don't just do one thing, try and do as many things as possible to get your news out there. Sometimes I may see a post on Twitter, but I don't have time to share it or republish it at that moment. And then I may get reminded again if I see it on Science Daily. So it's always important to try and increase that reach as much as possible to give journalists and you know, the media all the opportunity available to grab and share your news. You can also email me directly. And if you do email me directly, please send me a Word document, not a PDF. Again, to some of you, this may be obvious, but I do need to edit this document in order to put it on the website. And it just, again, time is always an issue. And if I have to copy paste from a PDF and there's formatting problems, etc., it can make things a little bit more tricky. Also, just let me know a sentence if you're emailing me your press release, why it's important, a couple of bullet points just to help make sure it gets picked up. On your website, something that I would like to kind of mention very briefly is images. More and more often these days, when I'm trying to republish your stories, I will right click and try and save your images from the website, and sometimes it kind of downloads the entire web page. It won't actually let me access the image itself. Please go onto your websites and just check that if a journalist is trying to help share your press releases, that is actually easy for them to grab all the information that they do actually need. Headlines, please keep them short and accurate. They need to be concise. 70 characters is kind of the preferred size of that. Most of the time when I am editing, it's kind of rewriting headlines to try and shorten them down, or to make sure that it's obvious that what the press release is actually going to be about. And finally, include great images and videos. If you do have access to multimedia and things, and you can include those, then that always improves the reach of your story, because we can share your videos within the website and also on social media. Images are a must. They really do need to be good quality, and please also provide kind of landscape and portrait images, because when I share your news on the website, I do need a landscape image for your cover photo. So these are just kind of things that people may not always think about when you're writing a press release, but these are just little tips that makes it easier for us to republish your work. So the submission process for our print magazines is really quite simple. The biggest thing being get in touch, email me, call me. I'm very approachable, or I try to be, and I'm very happy to have a discussion with anyone if you have an idea of a story but not quite sure in what format it should take, or if you haven't quite developed the idea yet, doesn't matter, just give me a call and I'm more than happy to have a little brainstorming session with you. Once we have confirmed a story and decided where it will be published, I will then send you a word count and contributor guide, as well as a deadline. Please stick to the brief. I understand that sometimes situations do change, but essentially I will plan the content of the magazine around our discussion. So if anything does change, then just pop me an email again and just keep me updated. And of course, submit all of your materials by the deadline. The reason why we have a strict deadline for the print magazines is because, of course, we need to get them to the printer on time, and that is something that we can't, unfortunately, hold. And once you have sent all your materials, I will then send you a layout to review, and you will have time to basically check over everything and make sure you're happy before we go to print, and then you can just sit back and enjoy all the attention that your story will get. So there are lots of opportunities, as I said, and lots of different types of stories that we're looking for. We can have feature stories, which can be of all sorts of different topics, opinion pieces, interviews, profiles. We are very flexible, and if you have a good idea, then please do get in touch. So my top advice in terms of this and just making sure you're in terms of storytelling, obviously tell a story, make it relatable and engaging by focusing on the people behind the science, not so much on the data itself. Keep language simple. Eco Magazine is a magazine that targets professionals and scientists. But at the end of the day, we also want people to enjoy reading it, and it's just nice to keep the tone conversational and light. And again, it just helps to improve the reach of your story. And be proactive. Don't just sit around waiting for scientists to make the next big discovery. There are going to be lots of stories within your institute. Again, it can be op-eds, it can be profiles, there may be community stories that you want to share. Again, you can just call me up and have a chat, and we can come up with some ideas to help promote you and your staff. Okay, so opportunities for next year, most importantly. We do have our 4 print magazines next year, which are spring, summer, autumn and winter issues. We do have editorial focuses, which will be marine ecosystems, coasts and estuaries, fisheries and aquaculture, and ocean exploration. If you are interested in featuring in any one of these, then please do get in touch. The deadline for the first edition is the 1st of February. So I will be planning this content for this particular edition really in the next few weeks. So please do reach out if you have any ideas for stories that you think will work well in the magazine. There are some changes that we are making to next year in terms of the structure of the magazine, where traditionally we may have, for example, one issue which focuses on fisheries, one issue that focuses on deep sea. Even though we do have an editorial focus, every issue will have a story about fisheries, deep sea, coast, polar. So there will always be something for everyone in every single edition. This reflects the interdisciplinary nature of ocean science, and again, it just means if you are a fisheries scientist, you don't have just one edition a year that would interest you. There will be stories relevant to you throughout the year, and lots of dynamic content to look forward to as well, including ocean community news and interviews and job opportunities. And we're eager to be as global as possible and to really expand our global coverage. So if you feel that you are located in an area that doesn't really get a lot of limelight, then please do reach out to me, because I'm more than happy to help report on the activities that are going on in your region. Okay, so the digital issues next year, we are focusing on the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, Rising Seas, which will cover anything from nature-based solutions, which I know the WWF have recently made some exciting announcements about, and obviously sea level rise modelling, etc., and marine pollution as well, which again is quite a broad topic. It will cover everything from microplastics to ecotoxicology. So lots of exciting content to be had here. So if I have time still, Lucy's not making any like hand signals at me. So, all right, okay, 3 minutes. So I'm almost at the end now. I just want to talk to you about this very exciting edition that we are doing. Obviously, to mark the start of the decade next year, as I said, we are teaming up with IOC UNESCO to create a decade edition. Now, I expect this to be exceptionally popular, and as I said, pretty much everyone here will be able to contribute in some manner. But essentially, the chapters will be made up of the 6 societal outcomes. So we have a clean ocean, a healthy and resilient ocean, a predicted ocean, a safe ocean, a sustainably harvested and productive ocean, and a transparent and accessible ocean. So if you are interested in contributing, you need to inform us of your interest by filling out an online form, which I may be able to kind of add to the chat after this. And you need to do that by the 25th of January. And then we will be in touch with you afterwards to let you know if the story has been accepted into the publication, and provide you with more details about the submission process. And the deadline for editorial, the final deadline will be March 8th. There's also opportunities to sponsor this special issue. So Eco Magazine, these special issues essentially are only made possible through through sponsorship and the generosity of organisations wishing to support these efforts. So please do get in touch if either yourself or your organisation would like to support us in that way as well. And I think that's everything from me. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kira, for that overview. I can say, having just worked with Kira on the deep sea issue, it is a lot of work, but it is really worth it. And it's yeah, it's really good. It's a really good way of getting stories out amongst a theme. So do look at the forward features and get in contact. We have got a question on the question and answers at the moment. So would it be fair to say you are looking for stories on natural sciences and technology, or are you interested in stories from the marine social sciences too, people focused?
Yes, so in our polar issue, we actually did have some kind of more people-focused stories, and also things like how COVID has impacted polar science, for example. So yeah, there's lots of flexibility there, so it doesn't necessarily have to be on natural sciences. As long as it's of interest and relevant to the ocean science community or to the ocean community stakeholders, then I'm more than happy to hear those ideas and to see where we could best feature them.
Okay, thank you very much. Is a request to share your presentation or your slides? Yeah,
that's fine.
To do that, I guess you could do that through us, and we could share them. But I guess a lot of this information is online as well.
It is, yeah. You could also email me and I can send you the presentation. So I assume, Lucy, you said at the beginning that these presentations, or at least the recordings, will be available. So
yeah, not until the new year, when we've had time to go through everything and do the proceedings. So sort of for the most immediate contact, I would say probably just get in contact with you.
Yes, and please put your subject and your email as CommOCEAN, so I know to definitely, not that I would ever ignore anyone, but the emails do get flooded sometimes, so I can pay particular interest to responding, you know, make sure I'm really responding to people and giving this information as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Another question, what sort of distribution and reach do you have with the magazine, and how do you monitor your audience engagement? It also comes with a comment to say it's a great mag.
Oh, thank you very much. Yep, so our distribution and reach for our print magazines are normally around, we look at page views just because we think that's a really just useful and consistent way to see how many people are actually viewing the pages. So our print magazines are on average 40,000 per edition, and our digital editions, with help through our partners as well, are often well over 100,000 page views. So, you know, it obviously helps that they're so big and there's so many people contributing to that, which obviously helps improve the reach. But both the print and digital editions, you know, get a lot of you know, they make their way around. So yeah. What was the other part of the question? Sorry, did I answer that?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So time for one last question. So beautiful mag, bravo. Is it possible to pitch formats like audio and video to you?
Yes, I forgot to say this. I think for the digital issue, I think I did briefly mention it at the beginning, but our digital special issues, you can send and submit podcasts and videos, and we can embed those within the magazine. Do take a look at the deep sea issue, because we have actually got a video feature where you can click on the videos and they'll just pop up and it looks great. And in terms of obviously our print magazines, we can't really support that format, but we can publish things on the website. So we're all for multimedia, especially for our digital issues. So please do get in touch if you do have a podcast or webinars, etc., as well as written stories.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think we'll have to leave this one there. Thank you, Kira. Very exciting year coming up for you, I think. So now I'll hand the floor to Larissa. Sharing a presentation, aren't you?
Just give me a moment. Get everything working. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Larissa. I work at the WWF's European Policy Office in Brussels, and I am delighted to be here today to speak with you all. At the WWF, we focus on the discourse of a sustainable blue economy, which perhaps doesn't sound too surprising given the nature of our work. And so today I'm going to share some lessons and best practices of communicating on this and insights, and I really welcome your questions at the end, should you have any at all. So here's a brief overview of what I'm going to discuss today. So what are the challenges of communicating on a sustainable blue economy? Based on those challenges, what strategies have we come up with? And what have we learned from what we've done so far? And finally, I'll conclude with a summary of key takeaways for telling great sustainable blue economy stories. So why am I here speaking to you today? So I'm a sustainability communications expert. I've worked in everything from food and farming to blockchain technology for food supply chains. And now at the WWF, I work on ocean policy communications. At the WWF European Policy Office, my role as a communicator is extremely diverse. This is everything from organizing events at the European Commission to publishing reports with in-depth scientific analysis on illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing in the high seas of the Indian Ocean. So on all that huge range of work, I lead on the press and social media work, creating all of that content. And I have the great privilege of working with artists and designers from across Europe to produce animations, beautiful reports, infographics, posters, you name it. And I take all of those wonderful assets and I collaborate with the WWF offices around the world to get our stories on EU marine policy out there, and equally to bring stories from around the world to the attention of EU decision makers. And the reason I'm giving you this really brief overview is basically to share that I wasn't born a marine policy communicator. I have learned how to do this, and I'm still learning how to do this. So I want to share with you today what I've taken away from the experiences so far. And equally, I have also been picking the brains of the colleagues I'm lucky enough to work with, because communications reaches far beyond my list of to-dos and deliverables as a communicator. It's all about how we bring these stories to the decision makers as well. So let's dive straight in. What are the challenges of communicating a sustainable blue economy? I've broken this down into two parts. So there's the bigger picture challenges of talking about such an enormous concept. And then there's how we talk about the elements that make up a sustainable blue economy. Broadly, the sustainable blue economy is difficult to communicate because everyone's interpretation of it is different. There is, in fact, no single agreed global definition for what the sustainable blue economy is. There are also limits to the simplifications that we can make, which is what we as communicators do all the time. So, for example, environmental impact assessments are thousands of pages of accumulated scientific study. How do you simplify that issue into 3 top-line messages while retaining the integrity of the issue? And finally, from my experiences of working in a diverse range of sustainability topics, I found that we face some broader communications challenges. Environmental NGOs are often pushing back against the stigma that they're alarmist, to the point of being detrimental to societal well-being, growth, and development. Simultaneously, industrial and political greenwashing is real. Clouding the waters of what's happening, what the issues are, and what opportunities are available. Getting more specific, we face numerous challenges when we try to draw out the elements that make up a sustainable blue economy and talk about them. Today, in this image, I'm using the example of offshore wind energy. I can appreciate that in this virtual room, there are many informed scientific minds who know exactly what they're looking at. But I'm sure that they can also appreciate that for many others, this doesn't look like anything. And so for those who don't know what this is, you're looking at 2 foundations for offshore wind turbines, specifically in the North Sea. So the physical reality of this subject is too far away for many people to connect with. The technology, the practicality of setup and operation, the functionality of this energy resource, they're all obscure to most. And the overlap between where an offshore wind turbine is, where a fishing vessel can fish, where a cargo ship passes through, and where a marine protected area exists are real issues. And each of these domains usually has its own expert or a stakeholder at a political level. So how do you get all of these people to be informed on all the crossover, and how do you get them to agree on what the issues are and what the solutions going forward should be? So we just looked at offshore wind energy, but this could just as easily have been fisheries or maritime transport. And we need to discuss all of those topics, and we need to make those links. And sometimes we need to do that in 180 characters or less. So the starting point for WWF in communicating on the sustainable blue economy has been to first define what the sustainable blue economy is. Fundamentally, this comes down to a single concept. The sustainable blue economy is sustainable use of the ocean and its resources. It is one that provides social and economic benefits for current and future generations, restores, protects, and maintains diverse, productive, and resilient marine ecosystems, and is based on clean technologies, renewable energies, and circular material flows. So you can hear from this language that this broader definition is working to address the two other broad challenges I described. It's top-level language. It doesn't break things down too simply. It's meant to reach a high-level audience. It's not alarmist language, but it's not all rosy either. But now that we have this starting point, how do we actually talk about it? The next slide I'm going to show you is the only slide I'm going to read from, I promise, but it's an important message about why the sustainable blue economy is actually a unique and crucial opportunity in ocean communications. In environmental conservation and restoration, generally speaking, there is a great need to break down silos between topics and sectors. And the sustainable blue economy brings us a level playing field on which all the issues, in fact, stand together. Fishers, seafood processors, seafood importers, seafood retailers, seafood consumers, fisheries managers, environment ministers, marine protected area managers, marine spatial planners, researchers, engineers, all stakeholders in coastal tourism and hospitality, energy companies, climate ministers, and so many more, all have a common interest: a healthy ocean. Quantifying and discussing this in terms of our economies and human-focused industries gives us a lens through which to examine and prioritize this issue. At Sustainable Blue Economy conferences, all the stakeholders are in the room. This being said, if all the stakeholders and politicians and industry representatives agreed, I probably wouldn't be here speaking with you today. So this is where the work of good ocean communications comes in. From social media to closed-door meetings with decision makers. Many of the tools to realize this goal of a healthy and resilient ocean already exist: marine protected areas, sustainable fisheries policies, renewable energy targets, international commitments like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We now hone in on these elements of a sustainable blue economy, address the challenges of how what's happening at sea is far away from my everyday reality and doesn't feel relevant, and make the connections between what's happening in our ocean and the implications for each of us not only clear, but interesting. In short, it's time to start making the commotion. So what have we learned from doing this so far? I've got 3 key lessons that I would like to share with you today. So the first thing is that when it comes to communications, I am constantly asking my policy colleagues, why would your grandmother care about this issue, and how would you explain it to her? Stakeholder engagement across all tiers, government to citizens, is critical. And these discussions are not just about business. It's about society and the duty of care that we all have to our communities. Don't forget, politicians are people too. They go to the seaside on holiday, they eat seafood, and they switch light switches on every single day. Show the win-win, where the environmental gains also mean gains elsewhere, from finance to digitization, technological advancement, and level playing fields between different parties. Real life examples showing best practices win. The woman in this photo is an oyster fisher from Portugal. Her name is Rita. She's actually come to Brussels twice to speak on panels at events in the European Parliament and to meet with decision makers. Her legacy in the fisheries bubble here is actually quite staggering. People still remember her and her arguments on gender imbalance and unsustainable practices in EU fisheries policy. This isn't only about positive stories, and the heavier messages need to effectively reach people in power as well, so that we all understand what's at stake. We need to make the cost of business as usual clear, as there can be impacts on sectors not immediately in view. But we need to do this without being alarmist. For example, if you destroy a mangrove forest, to construct a resort. It will take away local livelihoods for fishing and also have implications for the impacts of climate change where large storm surges are no longer kept at bay. This example of biodiversity and habitat loss has both a social cost to the coastal community and economic cost to the fishing industry, but it also has a measurable financial cost for things like cleanup after a disaster and building a seawall to replace the ecosystem service that's been lost now that the mangrove is gone. One of the biggest ocean stories to tell is the issue of overfishing, but I am constantly up against the problem that fish are not sexy. The same way that all the elements of a sustainable blue economy are connected, no school of fish truly swims alone. Our ocean is full of ambassadors who can open the door to bigger picture stories. The link we need to make as ocean communicators is to find the stories your aunt or your young cousin would find interesting, shocking, inspiring. Find a spectacular photo to go with it. This little tuna can be a good ocean ambassador too. Finally, as an evidence-based organization, having concrete figures to support our asks and our recommendations is crucial. We're not alarmist, we're accurate. The numbers around what's happening in our ocean are indeed scary. Equally, it's the numbers around a sustainable blue economy that are inspiring. The form of our communications materials to relay these punchy statistics is key. Decision makers, or more likely their assistants, are reading tons of reports, briefings, you name it, from organizations, industry lobbyists, and other tiers of government every day. Bring them something that will catch their eye and that they'll want to spend time reading, or better yet, put up on the wall in their office. So the elements I've just shown you are doorways to communicating about all the deep ocean jargon, from marine spatial planning to regional fisheries management organizations, and so many other concepts and acronyms that would otherwise alienate people if we tried to talk about them on their own. So now for some final takeaways. Have a clear position with clear asks. Come in with solid solutions, tangible options, showing that it's multi-stakeholder and that no one is on their own. This gives people new incentives to shift their behaviors. Show the win-win and bring in human voices. If it's being printed, make it something someone is going to want to pick up and read. If it's made to be viewed on a screen, make it something someone wants to look at more closely and more than once. For 2 closing thoughts, I'd like to share first that whatever you're communicating on, whether it's the blue economy more broadly or on specific concepts like fisheries, make sure the position that you have is clear and bring specific asks. And finally, build the reputation that you want to have. The communications products, while they often only manifest at the end of the process, are how we get stakeholders to actually care about what we have to say. Don't let communications be an afterthought of the work you're doing. It's the stuff that people get to hold in their hands, to share on social media with their colleagues, with their friends, and with their family. And it's what they'll remember when you left the room after they've read your report or once the presentation is over. So thank you very much for your time and your attention. I hope it was interesting, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Larissa. That was fantastic, and I probably speak for many when I say your eye candy is amazing. And we all wish we had your photo library.
Thank you.
So it was yeah, really lovely to look at. So thank you very much. And I think your last point there, you picked up on something we've been talking about yesterday about, you know, does science even exist if it's not communicated? I think this is our tree in the woods situation. Is, I think most of us would say it doesn't exist until people know about it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's really important. I do have a couple of questions coming in. So one from one of our hosts as well. So WWF and other NGOs are great at communicating the environmental or social impacts that dull legal text will have. Any tips on how to fish this? And I think we're referring to plain speaking here.
I missed part of the question. I'm just having a look in the chat to see if I can see it.
That one just came to me actually.
Awesome.
So yeah, just about how you take kind of the dull and legal and the boring and you know, turn it into something that's really engaging. Any kind of yeah, tips on that.
For me, it's always the so what question, and I think scientists and policy experts often it happens all the time. Like, this is really important, and I'm like, why? Because it's really important. It's like, yeah, but so what? It's really important. So what? Who cares? Why do other people who don't know why this is important care about it? And that's always that's the balancing act that we do between the science experts and the policy experts and the communicators, is finding that so what moment, because that's how you get the issue to really get attention and really get traction in the media, but even in social media, like just discourse and discussion. So it's answering that so what question.
Thank you very much. We have a question. Are there any specific case studies of sustainable blue biotechnology that you can tell us about?
Ooh, I don't have an answer to that question, but I really wish I did. I think it's a fantastic question. So I don't, unfortunately. But the other thing about, I think, the sustainable blue economy topic specifically, given that WWF had to create its own definition to have this discourse on a global scale, it's a very new discussion. So the projects that are emerging out of it, specifically labeled as sustainable blue economy related, are new, and they're really emerging. So I think we'll have more answers to that question in the coming years. Yeah,
I would suggest as well, if there aren't case studies out there, that somebody needs to tell Kira about them.
And the WWF, because we always include case studies in our reports. We're always looking for examples of what we mean by when we say we need sustainable fisheries. What does that mean? When we say we're effective, we need examples of how to effectively combat illegal fishing activities. We want to show what's happening. So indeed, bring us your stories.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question that we've been asking generally the speakers through the conference. A year like no other. We've probably all done much more digital activity than we've ever done before. We've been discussing whether or not we are at overload point with digital activity, and whether or not we feel like the digital activity we've done this year has actually had the same engagement or better engagement than it did last year, or whether or not people have just been overloaded and actually engagement rates on digital have maybe gone down. So I don't know what your experiences of that are.
Sorry, Larissa. Yeah, I suppose I'm obviously looking at it from a very different perspective than the rest of the speakers. We're in a fortunate position while we do have the print magazine, and I am a firm believer that print is not dead. I love a print magazine in my hands when I'm having a coffee in the morning, but digital has been fantastic. And in terms of our performance of the magazine this year, it's definitely increased. I don't know if that is because there's more people sitting at home and they have more time to read the magazines, or if it's because of the changes that we put into place, or a combination of those. But to me, I certainly feel that the magazine has been accessed a lot more, has been shared a lot more, and more people kind of taking that time to digest that material and to really think about it, and also want to share stories. So I think from my perspective, there's been lots of positives this year. That people have just had more time to actually sit there and think about communicating. Just people have contacted me saying, "Oh, I've got lots of time now, I'm going to submit a story." So I'm a little bit concerned actually more about next year, when people are going back to work and maybe have even less time. But that's just from our perspective.
Thank you.
I would just build on that very briefly by saying that I think that ocean science, policy, and communications benefited greatly from this year, because 2020 was supposed to be the ocean year, and depending who you speak with, it still was, because everyone was so ready to have all of these big discussions around the UN Ocean Conference, the IUCN Conference, COPs. And so everyone was ready, and no one was really willing to give up the opportunity and everything that they'd prepared. And so I think, ocean communications really radically escalated into how can we deliver this the best possible way, virtually, digitally. And so, yeah, I think here it's a fair like note of caution for going into 2021. At the same time, I think that our ocean work has the leg up on a lot of others, because we are very practiced and good at this now. So yeah, we're just as good in person as we are online.
I agree. We do have a question coming in saying really enjoyed both of these talks and found them so informative and inspiring. Oh, this has come on in a different place on my screen. The question is, how you tell stories for multiple stakeholders or funders? How can you be sure you keep everyone in the room happy when the topic you may be communicating might be decisive?
So for that, it can be a little bit complicated. So first, WWF as a global network, but also as a regional network, so in Europe, we have agreed positions on certain topics as a group of offices. So for example, on marine spatial planning or on marine protected areas. Most recently, we now have a position on offshore renewable wind energy in Europe. We have a position on what that is for us, what we want to see, and what needs to happen. That makes it easier for us as offices to communicate consistently across the board what we're looking for in every language. Does that mean that we make every stakeholder happy? Not always. And so sometimes the other thing that happens when a press release is being translated from English, we publish in English in Brussels, into Dutch for the Netherlands market, they may add different case studies, different examples that will speak more to their stakeholders that they have in that market. So we have this balancing act of having a united position and then bringing in specific examples that are relevant for the stakeholders in each market. So that's how we do it.
I think just to build on that as well, something what Larissa said earlier on, these are still people. One of the things, I'm also a lecturer in science communication at the University of Portsmouth, and one of the things I'm always telling my students is that you do need to tell a story, you do need to make people emotionally connect to that topic. And your fundraiser, your funders and stakeholders, they are humans. And they, like Larissa said, they do go to the beach, they do have holidays, they do have feelings and emotions. So I think it's really important to make sure you tell a compelling and engaging story at the beginning of your presentations or through whatever medium it is that you're talking to them, so they can personally relate and connect to that topic. And then you can start talking a little bit more about kind of the impact and build on from there. But I think it's always important to make sure that they can emotionally connect to that first through engaging stories.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you both very much. The questions have ended now, and we are approaching the end of the conference. Thank you so much. That was a really, really great and inspiring way to end things. I'm hoping Angel is going to share his screen any second. There you go. Oh, that's not. I'm not Tymon.
I'm Tymon. But it's nice to see my name.
I'll just pretend to be you.
Not an easy task.
That's me.
Enjoy though.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. So yeah, I will wrap up this year's conference. It's always sad when it comes to an end, and I'm incredibly sad that we don't get all to go and have a drink somewhere lovely together. I've missed it very much over the last 2 days, but what I haven't missed is the inspiring presentations, because they've all been there, and all of the really good content that we're used to in these conferences is absolutely been there. So thank you to everybody for your contributions there. We weren't able to include a poster session in this conference for obvious reasons, so we did create an online exhibition and invited multimedia submissions. These were presented yesterday, and you've been voting for your favourite activities ever since on our online pin board. There were really, really great examples, and in fact they were all fantastic and all really, really highly rated, so thank you so much for posing those. But we did receive 2 that received an average rating of 10 out of 10, perfect scores. And they were the use of public arts to raise awareness about ocean plastic pollution, which was a presentation by Jose Teixeira from CIMAR, and the I Live by a Sea competition video by Isabella Zielinski from Today We Have. So thank you very much to everybody. They were both really good examples, and I would say if you haven't been online to see them, just click on the online exhibition page on the CommOCEAN website and you can see those presentations. I promise you, you'll take some ideas away with you, which is what this conference is all about. So there's only one last thing to do, which is to thank everybody who was involved in this year's conference, our fantastic speakers, all of our participants for joining online, for the European Marine Board for their continued support of this conference, for our hosts in Poland. We were almost in Sopot, but the team there have put in a fantastic effort to get us to the point that we're at now. We all have a small organising committee who've been working really hard over the last sort of months to turn this from an in-person conference into a free online conference, which was not that easy. We also had a scientific committee who went through all of our abstracts that we received to put together this really fantastic program. We would really, I can see comments coming in now, so thank you so much from everywhere, especially South Africa. Brilliant. Really glad that we could open up a conference like this, and I do hope that those who have been here for the first time will be we'll see you again. We would really like your feedback. We've just shared a link to a feedback form on SurveyMonkey, but we will email it around to everybody as well. So please be honest about the content. Please be honest about what you'd like to see next time, because there will be a next time. We know that we want to meet in person because we really miss that. All of the conversations which take place outside of the conference and outside of the presentations. So we do hope to see you again in 2020. So thank you again, everybody. See you in 2 years' time.
Bye-bye. Thank you for your contributions.
Thank you very much, everybody.